it's never the right time. Just start. Like it's people, are waiting for something to happen for them to start. You don't need to quit your job and go full force right away, but you just need to start moving the needle, whether that's an hour a day, whether it's just research, whether it's talking to people. Just start working on it, because I promise you, you will know what to do next once you just start that first step.
From the Advancing Women in Tech podcast, this series on female founders highlights their unique ways of stumbling into the startup world, the companies they're currently building, and what they've learned along the way. I'm Sydney Umeri, and today we're talking with Natalie Barbu, a social media influencer who took her issues with content creation and developed a solution called Rella, a digital workspace to help content creators and influencers manage their business. At 26 years old, Natalie Barbu has been a content creator for 11 years. If you scroll back far enough on her YouTube channel, you'll see a makeup tutorial inspired by Aria from Pretty Little Liars. Throughout her years of having a YouTube channel, she's graduated high school, college, began a corporate career, quit a corporate career, and continued to grow her following. But during that time, she's also taken on a new role, the role of a founder.
I have been on YouTube for a very long time, and social media has been my job for over a decade. I can't even imagine my life without it, but I always knew that I wanted to own my own business one day aside from social media. So I always thought I was going to own something. I was going to do something else. Social media was just going to be a creative outlet. It's always going to be a side hustle or full-time thing that I'm also doing something else with, or it was going to serve as a stepping stone. But I never knew what exact business I was going to start. As I was, being a full-time content creator, I was doing consultations with other creators and micro creators to also try to help them grow their business into a full-time thing, like their personal brand. And that's when I started realizing that not only were the tools that I was using to be a content creator extremely inefficient in terms of the admin business side of things, but I couldn't even recommend what to use for my clients. And what they were using was not great either. So I started having this idea, why is there not a place where creators can manage their entire business as a business online? Like Honeybook is great for freelancers and they have everything there, clients, client work, contracts, templates, everything, invoices, everything is lives on Honeybook, but that's for freelancers. And that was set for a very specific industry, because creative freelancers like event planners and photographers, they need a very specific set of tools. They can't just use the generic, Notion and Excel and notes like you can, but it's really inefficient. Where I was thinking in the same lens as creators, there's nothing out there for creators that does that. So that's why I wanted to create a digital workspace for creators to manage their entire business in one place. And I just didn't find anything like that out there. So I was like, I'm going to create this. And I went into it very naive. I was like, okay, how hard can it be? I'm just going to pay someone to help me build this. Like, I really didn't think anything. I kind of just like dove head first thinking it was going to be like a fun little project. And then I quickly snowballed, because once I started wanting to do this and setting my sights on this, I just got so deep into it, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And this is exactly what I was like, this is going to be the $1 billion idea. So I decided to start. And it just started with asking questions, talking to people, figuring out how to even start an application. And it kind of just snowballed from there. So that's why I started it. It came from a personal need of mine, but it also, I always wanted to start a business. So for me, it wasn't like oh my God, I'm no longer only an influencer. Like I never wanted to just be an influencer. So I always had that in the back of my mind.
You had mentioned how you had clients prior to this and you were working with them, ask them questions, seeing their problems, in addition to you just having a problem case. Because I think, especially at AWIT, we work with AWS in their accelerator. And oftentimes, something that we always talk about is like, you want to be solving a problem, not inventing a problem and then solving that. It's just two different things. And so clearly you kind of already had seen what the issues were. But my question here is, how long did it take you to really settle in on like, this is the problem case? Because you clearly had some clients. So how long was it between like you just being an influencer, but also you working with people where you were like, actually, this is not working for me at all?
Yeah, it was a few years, actually. It was probably like 2 to 3 years. I was doing it full time for 2 years and consulting for 2 years, consulting other creators, and that's I just kept coming back to the same problem of like, "Ugh, why is there nothing out there?" And the first time I thought that, my first thought was not, "Let me create something like this." It was after experiencing it time and time again, trying to figure out my own process time and time again, and always coming back to, "Oh my god, this is so inefficient." That's when I was like, I was talking to a friend about it actually, and she was expressing the same problems. And I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. I'm going to create it.
Yeah, and so I've checked out Rella. As I was going through it, I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, obviously, I can see, like, the consumer base for this, like, it's a specific one, but the needs are there. But there are a bunch of offerings, like, there are a lot of things that you do. When I was trying to explain to someone, I was like, "Okay, it's, like, later, but then it's also, like, a sauna, but it's, like, all in one." It's wonderful. So usually when people come to ideas, it's not all at once. Like, one of the things I love about your platform is you can have multiple profiles in a specific social setting. So like you can have multiple Instagram accounts linked, whereas I think maybe for later, it's just a lot more complicated, I guess, to say the
Mhm.
least. And so was that like the entry point for you, or was there another issue just in terms of one of the many things that you solve?
Yeah, one of the biggest annoyances that I had was actually it started with the content planner. So I always got so frustrated when I was planning my content mixed with brand deals. So I was like, okay, I have to plan all my content. I also have to plan my brand deals on this calendar. Every time I had a brand deal, I had to sort through a bunch of emails to figure out, wait, what was the brief again? Or what if I'm posting an Instagram story, it was like, wait, what are the required hashtags that I need to add? Or what are the required tags? What was my discount code again? That might sound incredibly trivial, but that was where the first pain point started for me. It started rapidly expanding after that, but that was where for some reason I just got so annoyed because I think it always took me so long to like find things. I was
Yeah.
like, I can't, I keep sorting through my email there. Why is there no like one place where I can just click and everything is already there? And so that was where it started, was with the content planner portion, where I didn't find a content planner that I liked because I was on YouTube, I was on Instagram, I was on TikTok. I also am on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, Pinterest, like I'm across all platforms. I'm everywhere, and I felt like it was so hard for me to post across all those platforms, keep track of all my brand deals across all platforms, keep track of the requirements across all platforms, and then also just post on them too. I
Right.
wanted to, like, auto post and leave it and, like, be like, "Okay, I don't wanna have to do this all the time." And so that's where the initial pain point came, was from the content planner, and now we're kind of, like, expanding from there.
When you start a startup, on day one, you don't have 40 hours of work, nor do you probably have the like income to pay yourself from that specific thing. So a lot of people will stay within their jobs and roles. You are an influencer and still are. So that is something that you've been working on. But how has that transfer of time changed for you? Like how much time are you putting into influencing now versus your startup and things like that? Because you're in a different stage now.
Yeah, so I spend, I will say, like, 99% of my time on Rella. Thankfully, being an influencer means that I can show my life off, so I have just been vlogging, and that's been the main thing that my main content has been, showing the behind the scenes, showing my life, so I haven't had to, like, dedicate too much time to it. I do outsource some of the video editing, so I don't have to do that. I try to keep my social media very casual, very authentic, so that it doesn't take as much time for me. But that's been one thing where a lot of my weekends and nights have been spent like doing social media stuff whenever I can at the end, because my entire day is Rella. Like it's just totally dedicated to it. But also with being a founder, you're never turned off. Like if I need to do something on the weekend, I'm working on the weekend. Like Sundays are usually my chill work day where I'm not working a full day, but like if I'm watching TV on the couch, I'll be like doing some work on my computer just so that I don't, just so I can like leisurely work and get a little bit done prepping for Monday and prepping for the week.
How do you balance that in life? Because I think there's 2 ways you can go. Like, you can go really hard and get the thing done and maybe burn out, or you can kind of try and build in some stability in there, but then also there are deadlines that has to be met. So how do you personally balance that?
Yeah, so now we do have a team. So it's me and my two co-founders. We have two people that are full time working with us. So we always try to structure our days. Like in the mornings, we'll have meetings. Then we communicate through Slack. We have ClickUp for like deadlines and projects and deliverables on there. So we try to be very organized. And I think with those early morning meetings, that's where we set the kind of agenda for the day.
Mhm.
And I have to-do lists that I always have where I'm, making sure the top one is the highest priority and then working down the list. But it's being a startup founder, you're wearing a million hats. Everyone on the team is wearing a lot of hats. So it's we're all doing different roles. Your role is gonna change. You're going to get thrown things throughout the day that you might not have expected, and that's just the nature of the stage that we're in.
In addition to wearing many hats, in this phase of business, acquiring funding is key. Natalie and Rella originally spent much of their time looking for grants, but have since begun seeking funding from investors. And she shares the pros and cons of using both funding strategies.
I think there's no cons to grants. I think grants are amazing, especially if they're equity free. You want to preserve as much equity as possible. So if you can get grants, like attend pitch competitions, apply for grants. The only downside, I guess, the only con with grants is that it takes a lot of time to apply. So you are spending a lot of your time, which is the most valuable thing at this stage, applying for things that you might not get or for like really small checks. But I do think that it's something that is incredibly like if it's equity free, go for it. Like even if you can maybe hire someone on Upwork that can find a bunch of grants for you and fill out majority of the application, that and then you come in and just kind of fill in the blanks, like if that could be something that you do, then that is like I would recommend it. And then with funding, we knew that we wanted, in order to scale this product and with what we needed big checks. So we went after investors. So we went after venture capital funds.
When people go through finding investors, like not all money is good money. What are the questions that you're asking? Because I think there's this whole thing of I'm trying to get the money, I need to impress. But then it's like these people also have a stake in your business and you want to make sure that they are on board with what you're building for the long term. It's not like a I'm here today, gone tomorrow type of deal. So what questions are you asking?
Yeah, and I also wanna say that in you should look into it as I am giving you an opportunity to invest in my business really early stage where you're gonna get the biggest return out of this if you invest right now. And in the future, you're gonna make a lot of money off of this. So I think you need to flip it. But of course, yes, you want money, but if you really believe in what you're building, like I wholeheartedly believe that this is going to be something that every single investor that's invested in us is going to make so much more money in return. So I'm giving you an opportunity to be involved in this round. So I think one, it's that mindset that you need to flip because confidence is everything. If the founder is not confident in what they're building, then like why would an investor be? Like that's just like they will not be confident in it because if you should have the most conviction, like it should be like you need to think that this is the best idea in the world, and that you are the best team in the world to build this, or else no one else is going to believe you. So I think that that's number one. And then we turned down, I think we've turned down like over $300,000, which is a lot of money because and when we needed it, like when it would have, I mean, not absolutely needed it, but when we like, it definitely would have helped. Like we're not like completely done with our round, so that would have like closed up our round. We've turned down money because the investors were not a good fit. They either didn't we didn't think that we would like working with them. Like it just wasn't a good fit in terms of I felt like they wanted to take the product in a different direction, and I felt like there would have been just even from the initial conversations, I was like, this is just not going to work. Like I can tell that this is not going to work. And
Right.
people always say like if you have an investor that's like that, like get out, like do not do it. Like a bad investor on your cap table can really ruin your business. So denied that because we just felt like after a few conversations that we would just not have worked together, even though they wanted to invest. And that was very hard to say, because that's a lot of money that you're missing out on. And then another investor that we turned down just wanted way too much, way too early in the business. Like they wanted more equity than other investors were getting. And we just felt like it wasn't fair. And it was something that we weren't willing to give up that much equity for something we didn't think was the as valuable, for like it didn't equate to the value. So be picky. Like it's hard because money is something that can, destroy a company. Like if you don't have money, you run out of business. Like period. Like if we don't have money on the bank, we're done. But
Mhm.
I think that having good investors is also a way to ruin a business, or being desperate is a way to ruin a business as well. So make sure that you, one, can want to work with that person, that they can either provide some value, whether it's introducing you to the right people, whether they have knowledge in the space, whether you just get along with them and you really trust their guidance. If they've been there, they've done that, like whatever it is, make sure that those investors really believe in you and aren't gonna, want to totally be super hands-on where they're changing the direction or changing the vision, or even like kicking you out at one day, because they have power and they can do that
Right.
eventually. Like at this stage, we didn't give away any board seats, but like in the future, especially if you're giving away board seats, like that's going to be huge to make sure. And then in order for the questions to ask, I would just ask them, I think one, you can get a vibe for them through your conversations, but you can ask them to talk to other founders in their portfolio. So that's what we did. We talked to other founders from our investors in their portfolio so that we could just see like, hey, do you like this investor? Like, do you genuinely like them? Are they a good fit for your, like, do you think that we should take their money? That sort of thing.
Right.
And we had great experiences, and I love every single one of our investors. I think they've all provided a ton of value. I think they all really love the team and believe in what we're doing, and they've introduced us to amazing people. They're always willing to help. I think that's just what you need to look for in an investor, because they want you to succeed, because then they're going to succeed.
Yeah.
So they should I think it depends on what you want, but just making sure that you enjoy them, I think is like the best thing to do.
Yeah. And then there's this other piece of like the investment conversation where women don't have the best time raising money in tech.
Mm.
And so from that standpoint, how has that been for you?
Yeah. So I've never outrightly been like, no one's been outrightly rude to me, which has been good. Or I've never felt like the reason they're not investing is because I'm a woman. Like I've never felt that rejection in that way. But I think that it's an subconscious thing where it's not a I'm not investing because you're a woman. Like it's not like that's what they're going through their head, but investors look for patterns. And I mean, people look for patterns with what's going to succeed and what's not going to succeed. So their previous investments, if they've all been, white 30-year-old men, let's say, on paper, that has been successful, even if that's not straight up what they're looking for, like, oh, I need a white 30-year-old man, in their head, that's what works. So when they see someone that looks like that, they automatically have something in their brain that's like, oh, this is similar to someone I invested in that worked. So, like, this must be good. Like, they just automatically think, like, this must be a good investment. Whereas they don't have that many women that they've invested in or in their portfolio, because women only get 2% of venture capital money. So they don't have a lot of examples of, oh, this woman that I invested in did, or these 20 women that I invested in did amazing. So they just don't put you in that same pattern. So I think it's one of those things where it's a subconscious thing, and you need to go into the room incredibly confident, because I think one issue is that sometimes women, we don't brag on ourselves. That's an issue that I had to switch that mentality. I don't want to brag on myself, because then I was like, oh, I'm going to come off as like cocky, or I'm going to come off as, rude or whatever. But when you're in a room with people that are, looking for the most confident, excited people, like you need to be like that. And you
Mhm.
need to be like extremely confident in what you're building, and have just walk into it like, I am the right person. I have no doubt about it. And this is why you're going to listen to me, which is not easy to do. And I think most women have a problem with that, because we're just not taught to be like that. And so it's practice. It's a lot of practice, and being like, you know what, you're just gonna do it, and you're gonna explain why you are the best person for this. And I think that's just what it is, because you never know which investor is gonna have that like subconscious bias. So you have to go into it with a, this is why I'm the best, and like really portray that, because that's what they're looking for.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something that, I mean, any woman who's trying to raise money has to go through. So, just quality advice all around. You saw a problem, you wanted to tackle it. You're not necessarily technical, but you're building. What advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, number 1, it's never the right time, just start. Like, it's people, are waiting for something to happen for them to start. You don't need to quit your job and go full force right away, but you just need to start moving the needle, whether that's an hour a day, whether it's just research, whether it's talking to people. Just start working on it, because I promise you, you will know what to do next once you just start that first step of networking, research, getting the domain, figuring out, talking to potential customers or users. Like those are the first steps. I think people think that building is the first step. Like the first step is like building the product. That's like so far down the list of when you actually start doing that. So just start little by little, and eventually you might quit your job and eventually you might begin building this thing. But that's not the beginning. And I think people get so scared because they're like, oh my God, I don't have time. I can't do it. I don't have money. And the first few steps don't require any of that. I always just think like start with whatever you have and it's gonna progress from there. Or have like one conversation a week with someone that might help.
That's Natalie Barbu of Rella. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.